Neville Chamberlain came home waving a piece of paper saying, "Oh, we have peace in our time." And only 6 months later, the Nazis invaded. Now, look at what Trump is doing. He's talking about giving up pieces of the Ukraine the way Chamberlain gave up portions of Czechoslovakia. Welcome, Patriots. I'm Bruce Rutherford, your host and commentator for Common Sense for America, coming to you from the Westwood Golf Club in Houston, Texas. Today we're going to comment on the negotiations between Putin, President Trump, and President Zelensky in an effort to try to bring a ceasefire to the Ukraine war. Let's listen to this commentator from the BBC first, and then we'll comment.
Phone call with Vladimir Putin hasn't led to Moscow signing up to a 30-day ceasefire in Russia's ongoing war with its neighbor. In fact, the 90-minute conversation seems to have given the Kremlin more of an opportunity to make conditions on any truce, including the requirement that Kyiv must stop receiving foreign military aid and intelligence and end military mobilization.
The requirement that Kiev stop receiving military aid and stop mobilizing is an obvious ploy to weaken the Ukraine while Russia rearms and prepares for a new offensive. I can't believe anybody thinks that can trust Putin over this, but let's hear some more.
Mr. Putin did say, however, he was willing to pause attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, but 80% of it has already been destroyed by Russian bombs. This evening, President Zelensky said it's clear Russia isn't ready to end this war. The whole game is to weaken Ukraine. We'll be live in Kyiv, but first, Sarah Smith has our top story from Washington.
Let's put the current negotiations to end the Ukraine war in a historical perspective. Now, every commentator refers to the Munich meeting in 1938. Neville Chamberlain came home to England waving a piece of paper signed by Adolf Hitler saying, "Oh, we have peace in our time." Clearly, Chamberlain was lied to by Hitler, didn't know it, and was made a fool of when 6 months later, the Nazis invaded Czechoslovakia. Chamberlain and the French browbeat the Czechs into giving Nazis part of Czechoslovakia in return for waving this paper, "Peace in our time." And only 6 months later, the Nazis invaded. Well, clearly, Hitler made a fool of Chamberlain and the French. And by the way, at that time, Winston Churchill was being called a warmonger, and his position in the government and in politics in England didn't change until the Nazis invaded Czechoslovakia 6 months later after Chamberlain came home and waved the paper in the air. Now jump ahead to 1953. Dwight Eisenhower has just been elected President of the United States and takes the oath of office on January 20th, 1953. On July 27th, 1953, we have a signed ceasefire in Korea where the parties agree to draw a line over their current positions and cease fighting. How did Eisenhower negotiate that in such a short time? Well, first of all, we know for a fact that he threatened dramatically larger military commitment to the Korean Peninsula by the United States and other UN forces. We don't know, but we think he threatened the use of nuclear weapons. Now remember, at that time in 1953, the United States was the only nuclear power of any consequence. Now, he did not back down and he didn't surrender any additional territory. He came in with force and said, if you don't agree to the ceasefire, we'll keep fighting, and the implication is we will destroy you. Now, look at what Trump is doing. He's talking about giving up pieces of the Ukraine the way Chamberlain gave up portions of Czechoslovakia. Trump and Rubio may be the only people who trust Putin. No other world leader trusts Putin as far as they can throw him. Even President Xi of China doesn't trust Putin. So why is Trump and why are Rubio doing this? To fulfill a promise that they will end the war in 30 days? That's not the way to go about this. The way we should go about this is that the United States and NATO should commit troops on the ground in the Ukraine to defend Ukraine with the specific objective of ejecting Russia from Ukrainian territory. We should be following the Colin Powell doctrine of having a very specific and limited objective: eject Russia from the Ukraine, but do not step 1 foot into Russian territory, preserving the defensive character of NATO. NATO's always been a defensive alliance, and those troops should stay there as a peacekeeping force until the Ukraine is capable of defending itself on its own. Now that will bring Putin to the table in a credible way, not in the way he's negotiating now, saying, oh, I'm not going to bomb any more infrastructure or any more power plants. Well, shit, he's damn near out of ammunition anyway. Russia is really close to folding. He would love a ceasefire on his terms to give him a chance to rearm. We can't give him that chance. Trump shouldn't give him that chance. Now, once Trump and Rubio find out that Putin is trying to play them for fools, they are going to be very angry. And that's when it'll really hit the fan. And that's when we'll finally get serious about ending this war. Talk about this with your colleagues, with your friends, with your family. Tell us what you think. Thanks very much, Patriots.